18 years. Mena, I started working in Malta. I started having a full-time job when I was 19 years old. As most of the Gozitans, of course, it is very, very hard to cross every day, very, very time-consuming. So, and apart from that, I always liked the busy life of Malta, to be honest. And after some months that I started working in Malta, I said it's better that I move here because, of course, there are more opportunities for work, for study, even to socialize. You know, you are always meeting new people here, which is something that I really like, and I think it's important in my life. To be honest, when I was until 19 years old, I didn't have a lot of exposure while living in Gozo. Well, that's been quite a long time now, almost 20 years. I'm showing my age, but that's okay. I personally think that it is developing, obviously, slowly. But I think, yes, that from that time until now, things have changed a bit. And hopefully there was a lot of improvement and development. But back then, because I think I am the oldest of you all, the exposure was very, very low. And of course, because of the religious values that Gozo has, it was very different back then. It was always considered as a sin, and of course, acceptance from the community and from the families was a bit hard for the queer people during those days. But still, Gozo is still in my heart. Whoever asks me from where I am, I say I am Gozitan, but I live in Vgura. So obviously, Gozo always remains there, and obviously all my family still lives there, and I cross a lot. So Gozo is still in my heart.
Big part of our identity, I think.
Exactly, always.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Graz. Maybe Antonella can go next.
Hi, I'm Antonella, and I'm a second-year medical student. And apart from that, I also really love music and nature in general. And activism is very close to my heart, which is why I'm the Secretary General of LGBTI Gozo. And I try to just do a lot of different other things on the topics I'm really passionate about. I'm the youngest one here. I'm 19 years old. So I guess my experiences are quite different. However, it's obviously the system here has improved a lot, especially with the help of LGBTI Gozo. However, it's really sad to hear that certain things that even Graziella experienced are still happening now, because you think there have been more improvements. First of all, I mean, for me, the only exposure that there was in Gozo was LGBTI Gozo. And I know plenty of people my age who only came out when they went to Malta. I even know people that moved to Malta at the age of 16 just so that they can be openly out, because they didn't feel safe in Gozo. So I think that's still a big issue, and we need to work harder to increase representation in Gozo and make sure that, we show that it's okay. I think the fact that Gozo is becoming more of an elderly populated place is not helping, because most people are either just living in Malta or going abroad, which, to be fair, I don't blame them, but there's a lot of beauty in Gozo as well, And to be fair, I do think that it's improving slightly. However, there's still much to be done. And that's why I'm really happy and really proud to be surrounded by amazing people like you guys, because it makes all the difference. for me, LGBTI plus Gozo it was like the bridge between me and Gozo and my sexuality and activism. Like it really means a lot. The members of it are my family. Like I always like see everyone as like my siblings, especially in terms of like LGBT stuff. So it really means a lot because even knowing that you have someone living in the same island as you or having the same roots as you who understands what you're going through just makes it a whole lot easier. So I'm really grateful.
All right. Um, and we see you as a sibling as well. Don't worry. The feeling is mutual. Thanks a lot for that. I think it was a really great introduction, maybe a bit of an insight on every person here as well. This event is also related to IDAHOBIT, which is coming up in May. It's the day against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. And we would like to also extend this event to also relating it to this week, which was Lesbian Visibility Week. We know that women sometimes are limited, and especially queer women are even more. So we have to fight a bit extra for that. And it's really good to see queer women here as well, expressing and talking about that as well. So first question is to Antonella. Do you think that this day is still relevant to Gozo in 2021? Is queer activism really needed?
I think, as I was saying before, it definitely is still needed. I think that's something that people tend to kind of not exactly understand is that laws aren't everything. I get a lot of comments of like, you have all your rights now, so like, why are you still working for things? Like, what else do you need? But in reality, laws and rights are just the tip of the iceberg. Like, there is so much more to be done. It's pointless having a law, having something legalized, but then society still judges you and nothing any like ever changes. I think that's something that's really important is raising awareness and education along with the new law, because that matters a lot, and especially from kids with a young age. I mean, it's kids, if you tell them a woman can get married to a woman, they won't care. They'll understand that it's a part of society and grow thinking that it's okay. So it's as you get older that society kind of forms these really warped up ideas of what the normal is. So I think it would be really useful to start educating kids from a young age that it's all just okay. We're all humans at the end of the day, we're all living in the same world with the same body. So there's no difference. And I think that that's one of the main things that we still need to work on, just educating people. And so days like this, they're really important because that's how you're raising a bit of awareness. And even if it just helps one person, that's better than nothing. And it's all because also it's all a slow process. Like you help one person and then that one person will help other people and it just starts spreading more like that. So yeah, and in short, I do believe that there's still an important role for queer activism, especially in Gozo, because there's still a lot to be done, and hopefully in 10 years, 20 years time, it would all be normalized. People will be okay coming out at a young age, and it would, that would be an ideal world to live in, I guess. And I think we're working towards that, to be fair.
Okay, all right. So we're seeing that queer activism is still relevant because we also need to tackle this issue that has been there for a long time holistically. This people seeing people from the queer community from as different. And maybe we can be a bit informed on how this happens in Gozo. I know that Graciela did a study as well about lesbians coming out. Maybe you can tell us a bit of background on your studies, on your study, and how the queer women experience the Gozitin maybe double ceiling as well.
Yes, so basically when I was studying, when I was doing my degree with the University of Malta, as I said before, I was always curious because the lack of exposure that we had in Gozo. And I finished my studies in 2018, so that is almost 2 years and a half ago. And the aim, the study was amongst Gozitan lesbians. Of course, I was focusing on youths, so I did some structured interviews with 7 Gozitan lesbians, and they were ranging between 18 to 30 years old. All of them came out 2 years prior to the research, and most of them, as we already discussed, they either worked, studied, or lived in Malta, but they were all Gozitans. The aims of the study was to analyze and discover the barriers while coming out in Gozo. I wanted to focus mainly on lesbians because of the lack of research that we have in Gozo, particularly on lesbians. So that's why I wanted to focus on lesbians in particular. I wanted to discover as well how this coming out affected their well-being. And of course, the coming out living differently in Malta and in Gozo, considering that obviously Gozo is considered as a rural area and Malta is considered as an urban area. The outcome, let's say, of the research was that most Gozitan lesbians, they tend to come out mostly in Malta. They start living there, they start studying there or working there, and the environment there and society, it pushed them to come out more in Malta. And they tend to be more closeted in Gozo. Well, basically, that is the background in a nutshell of my study, which was conducted 2 years and a half ago. Things might have changed. I wish to do another study, to be honest, to analyze things, the situation, the current situation in Gozo. But yes, my study is talking about the situation 2 years and a half ago.
Yes. Okay, and that was that's very interesting to hear also, because there is this perception that since Malta is an urban area, people tend to come out when they start experiencing more the life in that urban area as well. And I think as an organization, we always question what could we do to help and facilitate that maybe this process can also be done in the rural area, which is Gozo. Which brings me to the next question. Maybe Kat can answer this. In which way do you think that homophobia, biphobia, transphobia is experienced in Gozo?
I think that because Gozo is such a small place and so many people know each other, talk between families is so constant. People are very afraid to come out. They might hear things within their own families, within, the conversations that are homophobic, that are transphobic, and they might feel, okay, if I were to come out, this is how I will be received. And that's definitely going to keep people from being able to experience who they are and to share who they are with the world. You know, even within my own family, they will say, you know, things that are homophobic, things that are transphobic. And yes, you might say, okay, this is an older generation. They don't understand. They don't have the terminology. They don't have the experience to understand what we're going through. But those sort of microaggressions are very impactful on young queer folk, especially youth who will in turn internalize their own sense of homophobia, their own sense of transphobia and biphobia. So this is just a constant conversation that we need to be having. And queer people, straight people, when you hear these conversations happening, these blatantly homophobic, transphobic, biphobic conversations, it's your job as an ally, as a human being who cares about the well-being of others, to call out your family members, to say, hold on, this is not okay. What you said is not correct. And show people this is the conversation we're having. And it's important to continue having these conversations. Like Antonella said, you can make a difference. If you change one person's perspective, the cause is not lost. And one person can make the difference between life and death for a queer person. That's really my stance, my sort of idea about it. So to speak up against homophobia, speak up against transphobia, continue to question, continue to have these conversations with our elders, with members of government here in Gozo, to keep the conversation going and to sort of set the precedent that this sort of behavior is not okay and is detrimental to people in Gozo, people in Malta. So yes, transphobia is still a huge problem here in Gozo. And something we as queer people, straight people, as allies need to continue to combat every day.
So we're seeing that maybe one of the strengths that we see in Gozo, which is the sense of community, that is felt quite a lot, is also sometimes the same reason why people find this barrier on coming out, on actually being who they are, because there is the sense that there is these microaggressions, as you mentioned, these subtle messages and comments that are said that kind of keep the person from actually coming out and being who they are.
Absolutely. And internalizing their own homophobia and transphobia. That is such an issue for queer folk around the world. To internalize that sense of homophobia. And, you know, that's one of the greatest shames, you know, that people who they simply love someone of the same sex, you know, and to internalize that sort of hatred is detrimental, especially for young folk. So it's something we have to continue to combat every day.
And I think we especially in our community, we don't tackle it as much, this internalized phobia, whether it's homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. It's this sense that as soon as you come out, there's this kind of switch that is switched, and I'm suddenly not homophobic or transphobic anymore. But in reality, we grew up with these messages all around us, and it's a struggle because, as you said, there's lots of emotions surrounding it, especially shame. So this internalized emotions and introjections, internalized messages that we get continue to be there even if the person did come out. And that's a struggle, that's a topic that we can discuss on its own. Yeah, okay. Graziella, I know that in our survey we found that around 56 percent of people said that they found it difficult to come out, and with almost 70% saying that the conditions in Gozo are worse than in Malta. I know that you had similar outcomes in your studies. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, in fact, they were quite similar. First thing I wanted to speak about was I wanted to discover the years and obviously the coming out of these Gozitan lesbians. So basically, the ones that were 24 to 28 years old, they felt attracted to other women when they were 13 years old. And they came out 5 to 6 years later. Your research shows that the main age that Gozitans come out is 21 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So we are quite the same with the results. Apart from that, something that was really interesting as well was the fact that the oldest participant, which was 30 years old in 2018, she had the first sexual encounter with another woman when she was 24 years old. So that means and shows how hard it was to meet and encounter other lesbians. But this took shorter for her to come out, and she came out 2 to 3 years later. The fact that the youngest participants came out of the age of 17, then it shows a bit the difference there was during the years. Something which I really want to share here is that almost all participants, they tried building relationships with men. Why? Because of course of society. Society imposed on them that of course we have a heterosexual leading society, and when they tried to build relationships with men, of course these relationships were all unfulfilling. And then when they tried a relationship with women, they decided that of course they felt better and they led a more happier and healthier life. I also discovered and analyzed the barriers amongst the institutions, and I am going to go through them shortly because we don't have a lot of time. I would speak about it forever. So basically, in their workplaces, those who were working in Malta, they found it easier to come out. And it was like the first place that they came out while working in their Maltese workplaces. Those who were working in Gozo, they found it really hard to come out, especially those who had professions where they had, let's call them clients, those who worked with people. And obviously they had to be very careful with whom to come out. And so basically they were really closeted because of this, because of their profession in Gozo. When they came out to their families, all of my participants, the seven participants, came out with their moms. But this was not easy. Why? Because it was observed that all participants, they experienced a minimum of 2 years with constant fights and arguments and miscommunications with their mothers. It was like mothers felt that their daughters, I'm going to say this, but yes, it's like they were dead to them. That's what my participants felt. Mostly their mothers were worried, of course, about their daughters' social, personal, and physical well-being, considering they were all also living in Gozo. not all participants came out to their fathers, but the ones that came out with their fathers, the reaction of their fathers, most of them, they accepted their daughters immediately. Others never spoke to their daughters about it, but discussed it with their wives, poor wives. But they never faced their daughters, either because of lack of communication or because they felt more safe to discuss it with their mothers. And those who didn't come out with their fathers was because of the reasons, mostly because of religious values. And again, the lack of communications that there might have been between the fathers and the daughters. Half of the participants came out to the extended family members as well, like cousins and grandmas. And one thing as well, the oldest participant mentioned that she had a better relationship with her dad when she came out to him. So that was a positive thing with dads as well. Amongst the friends and community in particular, the participants found that amongst the Maltese community and friends, they felt more acceptable when they came out to them. Within the Gozitan, amongst the Gozitan peers, when they came out to them, some of them, they also stopped speaking with them, and they had a long time friendship. Most of them, they were friends since secondary schools, and when they came out to them, some of them, they also stopped speaking to them. And most of the participants, when they came out, they preferred hanging out with LGBTIQ members instead of heterosexual individuals, because of course, sometimes they didn't understand the way of life they lived. Something which was really interesting as well, I was interested in the dating part amongst these Gozitan lesbians. So I asked them where there were if there were more opportunities in Malta and in Gozo. Of course, they mentioned that in Malta there were more opportunities amongst the Maltese community. Apart from that as well, this was mentioned because in Gozo, obviously, there are less possibility of gay events and communities. So people, even the Gozitans, they tend to be in Malta to attend to these events or Pride or whatever. Another reason of this was the fact that what I've been talking about, that most Gozitans, they are living in Malta, or else they are closeted in Gozo. So there is a lack of opportunity to meet Gozitan lesbians in Gozo. Because those who are still living in Gozo, they are either closeted, or else if they came out, they moved to Malta.
I have a question about this. Something that is coming to me also as you're talking. So there seems to be more opportunities of meeting other lesbians in Malta. We're saying at the same time. So both in our studies, it seemed like queer people in Gozo wanted more queer events. And yet sometimes I have this feeling, and sometimes it shows as well. They don't always attend events that are queer related in Gozo. So there's this dynamic, so where people and it's quite ambivalent and interesting for me that people want these queer events to be happening in Gozo, and yet at the same time nobody wants to go because they they will be seen at these queer events. So what suggestion would you, I mean, I'm opening this up to the floor, to all of you. What suggestion would you give due to this ambivalent relationship with this?
Well, to be honest, if I may say something, I observe it even in Malta, you know, sometimes people, I like to observe a lot. So even in Facebook groups, sometimes there are people who ask for events and they are asking frequently about events. But then today I am part of ARC, which is an NGO, which is an LGBTI NGO. And when we organize these things, then there is a lack of attendance. So why people keep on asking for events, but at the end of the day, even sometimes if there is Tombla, there is, I don't know, there is the Pride, there will be parties, there will be hikes. So the events, and I am sure that in Gozo there are these events as well. So speaking about events, we organize a lot of different events. It's not like always parties or always a relaxed event. So I can't really understand what the problem is with people not attending. I think that the issue is this, that I don't want to be seen in the scene. But yes, I ask for more events, but then most people don't attend. But I don't think it's an issue only in Gozo, because amongst several people in Malta, I know that it is here, the problem is in Malta as well.
Okay, that I think Kif Tate motivates me a bit more, because to see that it is not just something that pertains to Gozo, but it is felt throughout the whole island. Obviously, then you make a difference because in Malta there's more people, so there might be a little bit more attendance because there's such a diverse community. And as you're saying, in Gozo it's a smaller community as well.
And to be honest, I observed that women, there is a lack of attendance in women.
Yes.
All these events, they are mostly attended by men. So I think there is an issue with this as well. Can't understand why, but it's there.
Yes.
To be fair, if I may add something, when I came out, I was told, like, you know, don't show it off, like do whatever, but you know, don't be seen, don't show it off and stuff. And so in a way, I do understand that as well, because I was like that as well. Like I wanted more events because I wanted to meet other LGBT people. However, every time I'd go, I'd have this pressure to like not be seen. I remember like when I went to Pride, I think I was talking to Eman a lot about it, and even Reb, I was like, okay, I'm here, but I can't let like photographers like, you know, show me in photos. And, you know, I was like constantly trying to hide. And to be honest, like I loved Pride, but that was such a, like, it was an additional pressure that I did not need, to be fair. And eventually I got better and I realized that, you know what, like I don't, not that I don't care about what happens, but you know, you need to stop hiding in order to change something, because otherwise nothing's going to change because everyone's going to keep hiding. But I think it's a difficult process to reach that stage. It doesn't come easy, and it took a while, and I know a lot of people that are still not okay with it, you know, and so even they'd want like more private event, but at the same time that's still a bit hard to do, because it's like, how private can you go and when you're doing an event, you know? But so yeah, so in a way I do understand where that's coming from, you know, but I don't think it's a good thing, but hopefully it will change as well. And I think to be fair, I think the more like people see that the number of attendance is increasing, the more people will attend as well. Because that's the issue as well, I think sometimes. Like you see a small group of people and you're like, oh, that's only like 5 people, so I shouldn't go. And then that just kind of, it's like a vicious cycle of people not going because there's a few people. So it's a bit of a tough situation, I think.
Which I
but
think brings us back to very much what we were saying before. So this internalized homophobia and transphobia as well. That okay, maybe I want to meet other people. At the same time, I'm scared to be seen with the people that are part of my community, are part of how I identify as well. And as you were saying, there's shame, and it's a journey of self-acceptance to actually get there. But at the same time, I'm also understanding it a bit more because of what Graziella was mentioning before. Maybe before we had the studies, we would say like these people are paranoid or something. But we have actually studies now saying that these people did end up losing friendships, some kind of relationships. So there is some kind of value that needs to be given to that as well, because losing a long time friendship because of who you are, that I think says a lot, and I think it impacts the person's shame even more.
There's
And,
also there's
okay.
also there's also a sense of anonymity in big cities and a big place like Malta compared to Gozo, where I encountered the same issue as Antonella when I started to become active in LGBTQ I plus Gozo. I asked, oh, don't tag me in Facebook posts because maybe my family members will see this and start talking and it'll be a sort of uncomfortable conversation to have. And I remember speaking to my mother about this, and she's very supportive. And she said, live your life, be who you are. And then I realized to myself, wow, I'm a 26-year-old person. I've been out since I was 15 years old. What do I have to be ashamed of? What do I have to not be openly proud about who I am? And that takes time. I mean, it does take time to feel comfortable within yourself and to be proud of yourself, and to love yourself. I think that is such a huge issue with queer folk, that we're told you won't be able to experience love if this is the person you choose to be, regardless that, no, this is not a choice. And we internalize that so much that, okay, we're not worthy of love. We're not worthy of friendship, of companionship. So it's such a break when you're able to meet people in your community who are open and proud and accepting of you. And I think once queer folk around Gozo are able to see, wow, here's a community of people who are so proud of who they are and open and unafraid and not ashamed of who they are, that more people will be able to be comfortable with themselves. But there's such a sense of anonymity when you're in some place like Malta, which is, you know, bigger. There's not that sense of tight-knit community like it is here in Gozo, where everyone knows each other. So it's very hard, you know, coming out here in Gozo when you're afraid, what are people going to say about me? And being afraid, okay, if I take that step to be part of an organization or to go to an event, then that means, okay, this is it. This is who I am, and there's no step. And to an extent, yes, that is true. Once you've made that step, yes, you are here, you're proud, you're happy, and you're excited to be part of this community. And it's not something we should be ashamed of as Ghostins. We should feel proud of our, you know, community. And even, yeah, if there's 5 queer people meeting for an event, that's five amazing, beautiful souls who have lived your experiences, who know what you're going through, and who, yeah, you can build a family with. The family that we build on our own can sometimes be so much stronger than the family that we are born into. And those ties, you know, it's really funny. There's this saying, blood is thicker than water, but the real saying that people don't realize is the blood of the covenant is thicker than water of the womb, which is exact opposite of what we think that is. It's the family that you make yourself. Those covenants you make with other people are so much stronger than the relationships you can have with your family that you're born into, that you can branch out and build your own sort of safety network. And I think if queer people in Gozo know, okay, this is a safe place that you can go to, that you can be yourself and you can go on this journey. You don't have to be alone on this journey, you know, figuring out your sexuality, being comfortable with who you are.
I think the most tiring thing in all this is that it's not that you come out only once, you know, I'm gay and that's it. The fact is that wherever you go, whoever you meet, okay, I mean, there is always this thing, you know, that you need to tell people. Of course, it's not no one's business, but for you to feel comfortable and for you to see if the people are going to accept you, who you are, there's always this thing that I need to say, I need to tell my new co-workers, I need to tell, I don't know, my sister-in-law or my family or the new community I'm in. I think this is the most tiring thing, you know, that of course we are meeting people, new people every day in our lives. So it's not like you do it once and it ends there. No, you have to wait to see how this person is going to take it, how the other one is going to take it, how this family member is going to be acceptable or no. So I think this is the most tiring thing of it all, to be honest.
I think that's a great point that, yeah, you don't come out just once, you know, you're coming out all the time to different people. You're, you know, sort of flagging them in your mind. Is this someone who's going to be accepting of who I am? Is this someone I can trust with who I am? And just continuously coming out and coming out. And I think as you get older, maybe it becomes easier. But it is still very tiring, you know, having to discern who's going to be okay with this, who is safe enough to talk to this about.
Yeah, apart from I really agree with you on the fact that yes, when you become older, it becomes easier. But you know why? I think it's because that you accept yourself so much. And of course, you notice that you are growing older and you say, listen, this is my life and this is how I am happy. So why shouldn't I live the way that I want, you know, and that I have to, because my life is mine. So that is being controlled by other people. Sometimes you get so frustrated when it's been a long time of being controlled by society, that then of course most people, they explode and they say, listen, this is enough. I mean, I don't care what other people think, even sometimes if it's family. But I need to do this, and I need to move on and live the life I've always wanted.
It seems like maybe it becomes easier with time, that it becomes because you assimilate it more into your identity. I think the first time that you come out, it's this big thing, this big part of your identity that is maybe going against what people consider the norm of society. And as you grow older, you become more comfortable in that identity. You realize that being queer is part of your identity, but it's not the only part. We mentioned here different parts of our identity when we were introducing ourselves. People who like music or nature, people who work in projects and education, people who are interested in arts and give lessons as well. So there's different parts of our identity, and I think it's about integrating all of them. And I think education really helps in this. And it brings me to my next question. Maybe Kat, you can answer this. Like, more education events are always recommended, whether in polls, whether in studies. I saw that even in Graziella studies were recommended as in ours. Why do you think it is so? What does it mean?
I am such a huge proponent of early education about not just queerness and being gay here in Gozo, but sexual health, consent, um, just to let kids know, okay, what you're feeling is not something you should be ashamed about, that there is a community of people you can go to, that you can build your own family within your queer community. I think that education is so important, um, because yes, you might have someone who is 9, 10, 11 years old and is beginning to, go through puberty and is questioning and having these experiences and building that internalized shame. And to have someone who is older, established, and saying, look, here I am living my life, being openly queer, being happy with who I am, is going to make such a difference in someone's life. Um, I'm not sure about here in Gozo, but in America, there is such an unfortunate issue, with young queer kids who are bullied in school, and take their lives. And it's one of the saddest things for me, because I feel if there's just one person who can make a difference in that kid's life, who can be there for them, listen to them, show them, okay, here, this is your family. Your real family is not accepting you. Here's a beautiful community of queer folk who are going to be your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your aunts and uncles. Um, I think early education for young youth is so important to change the narrative, change the way that they see themselves. That, okay, no, you don't have to be in a heterosexual relationship if that's not who you are, that's not the only thing you can do, that you can still have a family and love the life that you're living and who you are. So I think education here in Gozo would influence homophobia, transphobia, answer those questions that young kids have. Antonella said something earlier today, that if you tell a young kid, here are two women who are getting married, they're not going to have any stigma about it. Stigma comes from the older generations, from other people, saying this is not okay, this is a sin, this is going to destroy your life, when no, that's not true. People are not born with stigma, they're not born with hatred. That's something, exactly, that is something that is fed into them by other people. So to show young queer kids and young straight kids, that this is normal, that this is who we are as human beings. Love is key. Love is love is love, and I am such a huge proponent of education as a
So
way
what
to
we're
take.
saying is essentially that the educational events are important because on a first pillar they're giving us more education, we're getting more knowledge, we're gaining a bit more insight, and on another pillar there's the space of meeting other people and having people from your community which you can build really good ties with. Do you think therefore that this is the reason why people also asked for public spaces and establishments and safe spaces? Graziella, even in your study and in ours, this seems to be a similarity as well.
Yes, amongst the recommendations, first of all, there was also what Antonella said before, that the more coming out there is, the more it's going to encourage other people to come out. And obviously the society will normalize the concept more. Apart from that, the recommendations were also an increase in events, the thing which we spoke to it about. And I think it is, to be honest, me personally, I think it's more crucial in Gozo than in Malta when organizing this type of events. Apart from that, it was also suggested that professional help amongst schools, for example, from PSD and guidance teachers, that there will be this sort of help and acceptance, especially among young people, because sometimes these young people, they don't feel comfortable to go and speak with their peers or with their family, but they feel safer to speak to someone who is not that close to them. And I think it will be a great idea if these type of professions, they will be more open about such topic. Apart from that as well, it was suggested that more knowledge and more awareness amongst parents in Gozo. Like it was suggested that there will be conferences, support groups, educational talks and programs. And while we are discussing this topic, I would like to really thank you, LGBTI Gozo, because I think that during these 6 years, since 2015, you've been doing a great job, because we really needed this type of NGO in Gozo. And I think that you are really doing a good work with organizing these types of events and obviously putting more exposure there, because we really needed it.
I think this is very relevant, and it's interesting that I think the two most spaces that were talked about are schools and are the parents, and as you are coming out, I think those are the two biggest environments that you are involved in. The fear that your peers at school won't accept you or that your parents won't. And I know that we've been trying to work on this past 3 years, and it will be in our next action plan again to focus a bit more on it. And it's always great to see a fellow Gozitan activist to also be involved in LGBT organizations, and I'm sure that we will have spaces to collaborate in the future as well. And this is what we're talking about. Representation is key. Antonella, do you think that there is a good queer representation amongst policymakers?
Well, as far as I know, we're the only proper Gozitan queer representation that has any like method of making a change in terms of policies and stuff, due to the meetings we have with like the Minister of Gozo and other ministers that we meet with. I think that this should change. However, I feel like with not just queer people, but in anything, feminism, like any minority really as well, you know, humans have that like need to have the feeling of us versus them, to feel like they belong somewhere, you know, and that they are against other people. And I think that kind of takes over sometimes, and we get too obsessed with our own community that we don't try as hard to collaborate with the other communities. And I think an important thing that we need to focus on as well, even as like a queer community, is to just blend in more with the heteronormative community. Because at the end of the day, most of the prejudice is coming from there, or from, you know, very closeted, internalized people with internalized homophobia. So I think that although we need to make sure that we're there for other queer people, we need to start being there for allies, for people who are straight and, you know, want to maybe try and figure out how to help other queer people, or for people who are straight and very homophobic, you know. For example, for me, it was very important. Like, I was always very involved at school and things like that. And there tends to be the stigma of like, oh, anyone who's queer is like the weirdo. So for me, it was really important to like show people that like, hi, I've been living with you for all this time. I've been involved with the same things as you, and I'm gay. So, you know, because even that, I feel like coming out is so complex. I'm very happy that, to be fair, like now I'm so happy that I'm gay, because coming out was a very important process for myself as well. It helped me understand that why, like, it gave me something to be so passionate about, and that I didn't want anyone to change for me, that it led me to understand that I don't need anyone at the end of the day. Like I just want to live my life, you know. And I feel like sometimes people can tell you, oh, okay, I accept that you're gay, but like you're not like the other gays, for example, like it's fine, you're different. And that brings so much shame as well. Like, no, at first you're like, I guess, but then you realize like, no, I'm sorry. What does that even mean? You know? So I feel like it comes from the other people kind of saying they accept you, but not exactly. But you know, it's just so complicated. And I think that
I see it as more tolerance rather than respect, especially when you're saying this, you're not like the other gays or the other queers. It's like there's the stereotype, and I think that the stereotype is real. I mean, it's built on some conviction, some truth, but at the same time, I think that the queer community, that's why it is so beautiful, because it is so diverse in it. People with so many different professions, walks of life, different backgrounds, and that can contribute to it. And this is really and truly a representation of the whole society. I mean, everyone in society is coming with a different walk of life. But maybe what is different in the queer community is that is celebrated. And in other communities there's this us versus them, and I think that is why our motto is built on around diversity, that diversity is a strength, not a limitation.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what you've been saying is very, very important to take into consideration. And I think that it's important to be aware of that concept of us versus them and how common it is amongst people, so that we try to break it down. And hopefully in the future, there will be more queer representation amongst policymakers and in the government and things like that. But I think until then, what is really important for us to do is to just normalize being queer and normalize being close with people who are not queer, and trying to take their perceptions into like ideas into perspective as well, and like talk about them and have normal conversations with them and see how they could be better allies, you know. Like, although we do need more queer representation amongst policymakers, we don't, like, just because there isn't enough doesn't mean we can't do anything. Like, I feel like sometimes having, unfortunately, but also I guess fortunately, weirdly, like having a straight person show that they are strong allies and that they want to work for the LGBT community improvements as well can be stronger than having a queer person say that, you know, because it shows that it's everyone working for the same goal rather than just the queer people.
Yeah. Yes, that's very true. So I think this brings me before I say the next question. Actually, I would like to tell people that if they're watching their live and they would like to send in their own questions, they can also do that on the video, and we will choose some questions to continue asking as well. Um, uh, so we're looking also kind of into the future, um, uh, and this question is for all of you. How can we unite together to work towards equity in Gozo? What still needs to be done?
I think that, as we said, first and foremost, we have to start from education. As we all know, education starts from home. So, yes, first of all, we need to have educated parents. We have to have acceptable parents. And this comes with education. So yes, more events, as we said, more programs dedicated for parents, and even the parents themselves. If I am a parent, why shouldn't I educate myself about these things? Why shouldn't I be involved? There is no shame. It doesn't mean that because I am involved, my daughter or my son or whatever, they are part of the queer community. No, education is always the key, and there is always room for improvement and room for education, no matter the age, no matter gender. I mean, education is the key. Apart from that, the other institution number 2 of education is obviously schools. Yes, when I was younger, there were these types of names, you know, that children used to call each other. We all know what they are. There's no need to mention it here. Even if you see whoever you are in school, in the streets, in the community, wherever you are, whoever you are, stop this type of discrimination. If there is a guy, there is a boy who is calling names to another boy, stop this type of discrimination. Apart from that, it doesn't mean that sometimes these children are part of the queer community again. But we need to stop this, you know. I mean, why do we call names and use names from the queer community to discriminate others, to say bad things about others? No, this has to stop. And it comes from each one of us. So to all the people out there, let's all work together, you know. As we already said, it's not you and me, it's not us, it's not you. We are all individuals, we are all humans, we all have a heart, and we all feel feelings. So please, let's try and normalize this thing. There is nothing wrong with being gay. There is nothing wrong with being bi. There is nothing wrong with being trans. Whatever and whoever, everyone is an individual. If you don't understand, and this is what I insist on, if you, Mary, Joseph, Josephine, don't understand these people, try to learn, try to meet these people, try to understand. The first time myself, and I am not ashamed of it because for me it was something new. When I learned about trans people, I couldn't understand at first. It's normal because I am not trans and I didn't experience it. But what I did is that I had a colleague of mine who was trans, and I used to speak with her. I used to ask her questions. How do you feel? And she used to tell me her experience and how she felt and the discrimination that she went through. How all this affected her well-being, her life, her lifestyle. And then, yes, I started understanding trans and the trans life. And apart from that, I can always also mention this as well, that trans people, there is still a lot of discrimination on trans people. And we also need to work on this. As I said, we are all humans, we are all individuals. Please, let's be acceptable. Let's accept everyone as they are. We have only one life, as I always said. And it is very disappointing not to live it the way you want. So please, let's be kind and let's share love with everyone.
I think kindness is always key. I think kindness is something that is really underrated in today's society in Gozo and across the world. Be kind to one another. If you have questions, ask them in a respectful and conscious way. Be aware that other people have a different set of experiences than you do, and are dealing with things in their home, in their lives, internally that you don't know about. And we pride ourselves as Gozadins, as Maltese people, to have a strong connection with God, to have that strong sense of religion, kindness, and love towards each other is the pillar of Catholicism, what I believe Catholicism should be. So we need to be kind to one another. We have to say, okay, we can ask questions. We can learn more about something. We can educate ourselves about something, but we can do it in a respectful way. We can do it in a way that is not subjecting someone else to discrimination, to bigotry, that we can continue to ask questions in a constructive way and learn from each other. We're all sharing this experience in life. We have to walk beside each other, and end stigma, end discrimination, ask questions, be conscious, and be kind.
So we're saying like the community is important. Graciela also mentioned the schools and the parents are important, and especially the allies. The allies seem to be also really, really important into this path and journey of life. Having the whole society, not just our community, accepting and being supportive of different civil rights. Antonella, maybe last comment from you.
I agree with everything that Kat and Graziella have been saying. I really, really believe in kindness as well. I think if you just live your life and focus on being kind, then the world would be such a better place, because that's all we need at the end of the day. And why shouldn't we? Like, everyone wants other people to be kind to them, and yet they're not ready to be kind to other people. It doesn't make sense. And I think something that is really, really important is understanding that individual contributions matter a lot, because I think especially in Malta and Gozo, there's the idea of like, oh, if I do something to better the community, I'm just like one person, it doesn't matter. There's other people, larger communities who can do something. But in reality, that is not true, because everything starts on an individual basis. I mean, we could have, us as an organization, have 1 billion different educational campaigns. If people don't try to understand what they're about and live them in their daily life, it's going to be for nothing. So what we need to focus on is making a change in our individual life, you know, trying to understand people, trying to be kind to one another. And that is going to make, that's what's going to have the biggest impact. And I think also just improving in terms of like larger scale education as well, like improving sexual health and education in general. As Kat said before as well, not just queer, but even like straight sexual education. Because I feel like personally, for example, there was like a 2-layered thing of I needed to get over the shame of sex in general and that concept in general. And then the add-on shame of being gay. So it's, you know, it's really important to try and at least start decreasing one, and that would automatically make the other better, because there's still so much shame. People talk about sex in either a joking, like a comedic way, you know, like, with friends, just sex, yeah, blah, 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 jokes. Or else you just don't talk about it or don't mention that you do. Like, and it's stupid because, okay, it's okay to make jokes about it. I make jokes about it. Everyone does. But you need to have a safe space where you can have a serious conversation about it, you know, and be honest about your body and what happens. Like, that's such a thing as well. Like, one person would say something about their body, for example, which might not even be true. And everyone else doesn't say the truth. They just stigmatize themselves and carry on this shame without making a change.
So first, we need to start a conversation about sexuality as well, not just sexual orientation. It seems to be an overarching theme as well. Well, thank you all for today. It was really a pleasure to have this conversation. I think I am really proud, especially of all of you for even making Gozo, putting Gozo at the forefront of this conversation, which I think has been in the back for many years, and it's good that we're having this conversation about queer Gozitans, especially because that's a conversation, that's an experience that is unique on its own. Last thing that I would like to say is that we are here from different parts of life. We had this conversation, we had this debate. Let's continue these debates, let's continue these conversations. I think we are too focused on being right in society today, instead of actually sitting down and having the conversation with other people. Sometimes having the conversation with the people that we think are ignorant, that they are not educational enough, that is the most important conversation that you can have, because that way you can meet in the middle. Last thing that I want to mention that I think is really important, it came out in our study and in Graziela's study as well, that professional help was needed, and I think ultimately that is why we are here. So I would like to mention that we have queer professionals, queer friendly professionals section on our website. If you need some kind of service, some of them offer a reduced price, others offer it for free. So do check it out if you need the service. And apart from that, we also have a helpline where we can also refer you to other professionals. We can also give you free counseling sessions if you would need that. The number is 99356 I'm proud that I managed to remember that after saying it so many times. We will also put it in our event for people in case they would need to reach that. thank you all for today. We have another event coming next week where we'll discuss Malta's in general way towards civil rights, the path towards civil rights. And then after that, we also are covering Europe and the Europeanization effect on Malta as well. And we'll be joined by foreign activists. So if you're interested in that, that will be the last one on the 15th of May. So thank you a lot. I hope you have a great weekend and take care.
Thank you so much, Reb.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.